Hey guys, I'm Nai. Today we'll talk about emergency response, the bushfire in Waterye. So firstly, I will talk about President's research, and then Aris will talk about the site analysis, and the Zihao and Haoni will talk about inhabitant analysis. The acknowledgement of the country. We'd like to begin by acknowledging of the guardian of the Aurora Nation, the traditional custodian of the land, and to pay our respects to the elders by past and present. We picked the emergency scenario is a bushfire. So the bushfire impact, including the physical direct impact, ongoing ecological and biodiversity impacts, public health, economic costs, environmental costs. The first precedent is an urban bushfire. I picked a case that is a Black Saturday bushfire in 2009. During that bushfire, 173 people died, thousands of the homes and other residents were destroyed, and over 300,000 habitats were burned. More than 78 communities across Victoria were directly affected, and the Victorian township were devastated. The second precedent is talk about the rural bushfire. The case study for the Black Summer bushfire from 2019 to 2020. For that bushfire season was the worst on record for New South Wales. High temperatures and low moisture level following a year of the drought fueled devastating fire across much of the state. Intense bushfire conditions persisted throughout most of the season, resulting in 26 fatalities and destruction of the 2,448 homes and the burn of 5.5 million habitats. The fire also destroyed 284 facilities and 5,469 outbuildings while damaging 1,013 homes, 194 facilities, and 2,042 outbuildings, predominantly in southern New South Wales. The agricultural sector faces serious loss, with thousands of farms and significant livestock affected, exacerbating the strain from the prolonged drought. The impact on communities, farmers, local business, wildlife, and bushland was unprecedented. Just based on these two precedents, compared with the urban bushfire and the rural bushfire. So the rural bushfire probably will influence the indigenous Australian people. The First Nations Australia experienced a disproportionately severe impact from the Black Summer bushfire due to inadequate planning and inappropriate intervention by authorities. According to researchers at the Australian National University, the researcher found that Indigenous Australians face racism and unfair treatment, in addition to losing home, land, and lives. The report points to a significant policy gap in supporting Indigenous Australian people during disaster, noting the absence of the emergency management plan that addressed their unique needs. This lack of inclusion caused inadequate, ineffective, and inappropriate response during the Black Summer bushfire. If we talk about bushfire impacted Indigenous Australia, we definitely need to talk about the cultural burning. So what's a cultural burning? Cultural burning is a cultural fire practice used by the First Nation people to improve the country's and its people's health. It has been used for over 60,000 years to manage land, plants, and animals. This disposition of land and loss of identity has meant that the cultural burning has not occurred over land part of Australia for many generations. Still, there is an increasing awareness of its important role in mitigating the effect of the extreme bushfires caused by climate change. So based on the cultural burning like the framework, I find some precedents like the coal fire. The coal fire that is central idea in fire management. This is best achieved during the nighttime or early morning when the plant releases fewer flammable oil and nightly to help cool the fire. And the cool fire can encourage the plant's growth and provide some nutrition for the soil. So during the burning, this soil base also allowed humans to work with and manage the fire. And there's another prevalence that it's a create fire resilient landscape. The burning for the endangered Byron Bay orchid, a unique yellow orchid grown in Araco National Park in New South Wales, managed by the Bunjalung people. This orchid and its clade health habitat are significant to Okra people but are both listed as endangered. The clay house is threatened by the wildfire, weed, animal, and urban development, and trampling by tourists. Fire is essential for the survival of the clay health, as many plants in the park are obligate seeded that require fire to reach the seed, stimulate new growth, and complete their life cycle. Alright, let me hand out errors to present the site analysis.
So our chosen site is what I also known as Port Kitts, is a remote indigenous community located in the Northern Territory of Australia, situated approximately 230 kilometers southwest of Darwin. Wadi is notable for being one of the largest indigenous communities in the Northern Territory. The town was originally established as a Roman Catholic mission station by Father Richard Doherty in 1935. However, it was moved inland to its present location in 1938 due to a lack of water supply. As of recent estimates, the population is about 20 to 59 people, and 89% of them are Indigenous Australians, with various clans and groups residing in the area. The traditional owners of the land in Wadi are primarily speakers of the Marin Patha language, which is widely spoken among the indigenous population in the region. Mara Patha is a significant cultural and linguistic heritage, playing a vital role in daily communication and cultural practices within the community. Wadi is accessible through the Daly River Road during the dry season, which is the May to October. At other times, it is only accessible by light aircraft and coastal barges. The Port Kitts Airfield is a sealed airstrip with regular flights to Darwin. Wadi has a tropical savanna climate with distinct wet season from November to April and dry season from May to October. It has high temperatures and humidity throughout the year. From the graphical chart, we can see that the highest temperature from 1997 to present is often about 40 degrees. Due to the region's tropical climate, disasters such as fires, floods, and storms can occur. This will lead to the following effects on the inhabitants of the site. Health and living conditions. Climate change is anticipated to increase risks of heat stress, dehydration, skin infection, and gastrointestinal illness among residents. Economic and social impact. More extreme weather events could hinder access to essential services and goods, making participation in economic activities more challenging. Infrastructure. Housing infrastructure faces challenges from elevated temperatures and extreme weather events like storms and floods, which could lead to failures in levees, drainage system, and increased damage from storms and fires. To enhance the desired condition, we can use natural ventilation, cooling system, solar power controlled bus, and fire safety education. To protect from undesired conditions, we can design elevated structures using fire-resistant materials, energy storage, energy shelters, and health infrastructures. The topography of the area is flat and slightly undulating woodland, with large coastal impact plains to the south and northeast, and elevation is about 10 to 50 meters. Wadi's drainage system is through nearby creeks and rivers, but it is mainly drained by the Fitzmaurice River and Molly rivers. The traffic flow varies with different seasons. During the wet season, some roads will become inaccessible because of the seasonal flooding, which may lead to difficulty in the emergency services and supply chain. Wadi may be flooded due to seasonal strong winds or after continuous heavy rain. So planting native plants as windbreaks based on the contour creates sheltered, shaded, and outdoor areas, and also reduces the impact of wind on open spaces. Efficient use of collected rainwater, recycling, or using slopes to divert excess water to the drainage system is also a strategy for protection. Stockhead conducted a biodiversity assessment in the Wadi area. The research shows that the area has a series of sensitive and significant vegetation communities, including monsoon rainforest, mangroves, riparian vegetation, and other wetland vegetation. There were 313 vertebrate species, which include 6 threatened species, and there are 76 native terrestrial vertebrate species, and 4 foreign species, which are cane toad, black rat, cat, and pig. There are ways to work with local flora and fauna. The first one is incorporating native plants into design. The protection of native plants when facing bushfires is necessary as they are more adaptable to the local environment and maintain the ecological balance. Second one is to respect indigenous knowledge, engage in consultation with the Wadai community to understand their values, needs, and ecological knowledge, incorporating traditional land management practices such as cultural burning to reduce the effects of fires on the local flora. Third is co-management. Local indigenous people have their own way of reacting to feral animals in response to their historical interactions with other animals and the impact of these animals on their traditional economic activities. Co-management between indigenous communities and the government is crucial for developing an ecological sustainable environment. Potential hindrances for the Wadai community is the bushfire risk, invasive plants, and wildlife hazards. Invasive plants can cause environmental degradation and affecting the vegetation types of the land. Therefore, it is important to prevent invasion and replacement of native plants by exotic plants, as they can lead to serious ecological imbalances and indirectly cause natural disasters such as fires. Due to the biological nature of the area, incidents like crocodiles and snakes attacking humans may occur. This may affect the rescue and evacuation when bushfire happen. Potential dangers like bushfires, flooding, and tropical cyclones, social unrest, land degradation, and water pollution may affect the site. For developing design strategies, we can build a non-flammable shelter space for defending the bushfire or providing water supplies for emergency use.
So the next part is the cultural value of water. In this part, I divide in 4 points. The first point is connection to land. After the research, I found that land is the central to the identity and special life of indigenous Australian people. It is the land where they live and where their ethnic culture is passed on. And the second point is the community and kinship. And indigenous communities mean that their ethnic groups is rooted here, and their close kinship means that they are able to ensure the community's members look after each other in bushfire. And the next is the cultural preservation. Each indigenous community has their own culture and they are committed to preserving their cultural heritage and their language and traditions. The last is the holistic health and well-being. The health and well-being of the communities is of great importance to indigenous communities, both physically and mentally. And then, how can I design embody these values in order to better serve the end user? For this question, there are 4 points here. The first is for the community. Space for community activities and family get-together should be encouraged in design. Then, for the land culture, local materials and natural elements that resonate with the community's traditional landscape can be applied to the design. What's more, for cultural preservation, the protection of cultural heritage include the holdings of traditional ceremonies and the design of an area to display cultural artifacts. Last is for the holistic health, improve the layout design of community space, regionalize the community space, and strengthen the construction of medical facilities. And then let's talking about the influence of multicultural population on design. As a designer, we need to think about the design for diverse needs. Secondly, because there are different cultural between us and the indigenous community, so we need to respecting the traditions. And the next, adaptabilities and flexibilities is also important points we need to consider in the design projects. What's more, the social cohesion between the indigenous community is important points here. And the last point is the environmental consideration. We need to think about how to make environments more sustainable. And the next part is the analysis of the politics of water. The first is the community governance. While they have structures of local governance, they have the traditional leaders and elitist representatives. And then engagement with government service is very important, and the cooperation with local governments to build indigenous communities can inject new energy and improve the standard of living of communities. The last is the disaster response and recovery. Strengthen the response capacities and recovery support of indigenous communities of natural disaster and ensuring that indigenous people can play important roles in disaster recovery decisions. And the next part is the special needs of Madayan. The first is the healthcare facilities. It is essential to have comprehensive healthcare facilities that provide services like mental health and chronic disease management that are suited to the needs of the communities. In this point, adequate medical facilities are available to treat the injury in the immediate aftermath of the bushfire. And then is the accessibility for people with disabilities. The accessible design provided to people with disabilities enables them to evacuate quickly in the event of bushfire. What's more, support for elder residents is very important. In bushfire, the evacuation speed of the elders should be considered and rapid evacuation channels should be provided. The last is the education support. Conducts bushfire-related safety awareness training to enable students to face emergency situation is very important things here.
The potential dangers arising from the conditions and lifestyle of the inhabitants can be multiplicated that can exacerbate bushfires. Firstly, the remote location of wadi and limited access roads means that emergency service can take longer to reach the community during a bushfire, increasing the risks to lives and property. Secondly, wadi is home to a culturally diverse population of many different languages spoken, which can complicate the dissemination of emergency information. Thirdly, higher rates of chronic health conditions can make residents more vulnerable during a bushfire, and vulnerable groups may have a harder time evacuating and protecting themselves. Design can play a crucial role in mitigating the potential dangers faced by the wadi community, especially in the context of bushfires. Like we can design some early emergency alert system to remind inhabitants and collaborate with indigenous leaders to incorporate traditional knowledge and practice into bushfire management plans. We can still use multiple language, pictograms, and visual aids to design communication materials and develop local solutions for home safety or create. Wadi is like many remote indigenous communities in Australia, faces a range of chronic issues. First, inadequate housing. From the chart, we can see that the count of families is more than dwellings, and we can develop sustainable housing using local materials and climate-appropriated designs. Then, education and employment barriers. From the chart, we can see that wadi residents are not highly educated and has a low employment prevalence rate. It means that the chances to access to quality education and vocational training are limited. Infrastructure to broaden educational opportunities and support the design of community, and we can build remote learning enterprise. For the residents of wadi, emerging or potential issues and ongoing human rights emergencies often intertwine with climate change and environmental degradation, like increased frequency of extreme weather events and ecosystem disruption. We can design green buildings,
community gardens and sustainable agriculture to solve this problem, or we can rely on renewable energy. Through Assessment 1, our group concluded that it is very important to respect the culture of indigenous people. Cultural differences need to be considered in the design, as well as the region they live in is also a factor to be considered. Next, we will discuss how to play with the characteristic of the design in the face of bushfire based on these factors to provide them with a good way to deal with them.